with land in mind, can I just move swiftly along to this issue regarding Roundup? You see it everywhere now. I'm sure that it's still on all of the shelves. It's made by Monsanto. And recently they had to pay out a ginormous amount of money to a groundskeeper by the name of Dwayne Johnson. It was the first lawsuit to go to trial because he got cancer and he blamed Monsanto and he blamed their product Roundup for it. And he won. And he was awarded $39 million in compensation and $250 million in punitive damages. They figure that in spite of the $289 million that he got, he will be dead by the year 2020. And I spoke in the past on a number of occasions to Michael O Doherty, the health practitioner, with regards to various sprays. Now, some of them could be household sprays that we use. Others could be used in hotels and restaurants. We don't know about it, on tabletop surfaces. But I suppose the point being weed killers, and what we're inhaling. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Well, what do you know of this case? Did you look at it? Did you study it? Monsanto put up a defence, didn't they?
Well, I think the legal team that took this case had obviously their research done, and the case really only just highlights how multinationals can really power their way through lobbyist groups to push licenses through for products that are worth billions at the cost of the ordinary person. And I think the legal team that took this case has to be applauded, just like the legal team years ago that took the case with the smoking, just like the legal team that took the case of Ricky Phelan. That it's great that there are these people out there who are willing to challenge these multinationals who are putting people's lives at risk. And look, this isn't new news, Neil. This is going on for years. There is an enormous amount of research there, and the World Health Organization, the agency that's responsible for research on cancer, in 2015, nearly concluded it themselves without using that word, concluded it. Glyphosate, which is the toxic chemical, the compound of Roundup, that in 2015 they said it was carcinogenic. And I think if people wanted to get into that and look at the research on it, they would see quite clearly that these sprays are highly toxic.
Monsanto, in their defence, came up with 800 scientific studies supporting the fact that they say that glyphosate in Roundup doesn't cause cancer. Maybe he got the cancer somewhere else.
Well, look, the thing about it is this, that what you find with most of these multinational companies is that a lot of the research that they bring in to support their perspective on it is very biased research.
Yeah.
If you go into the nuts and bolts of it, you look at the people who wrote the papers, who signed the papers. They might have never even seen the research. They just put their name to it. So research, while they put certain research together and they may set out, Monsanto may set out with the best of intent that this is a weed killer and that is all it does. But sometimes, how do they test this? Where is the testing done on its effect on humans? They don't do that kind of test. So again, going back, passive. But
they tell you need to wear a mask, I'm sure. And this guy worked in the horticulture business apparently, and apparently he would apply it 30 times a year by hose. Apparently the hose broke and he ended up being sprayed all over with Roundup. Yeah. I guess that increases the risk for sure.
No, but there's a little bit more to it. It's a little bit like saying to people, don't drive with your seatbelt off or you get points. People will drive with their seatbelt off. People will, go on the car today with their mobile phone, even though they know if they get caught, they're going to get fined. The ordinary person out there, and I see them and you see them, Neil, if you're going along the road in your car and you see ordinary people outside their walls killing weeds, no masks, no nothing. And what happens is that you have to think about that this is an airborne toxin. And it isn't just about what you're inhaling. It's going on your clothes. It's going on your skin. I could tell you hair-raising stories of people who would have told me that worked with this, who are dead. Friends of theirs who told me, one story I was talking to recently about to a guy, and he said this fella he used to know, he used to mix it and he'd never have gloves on, and he'd put his hands would be all wet, the glyphosate, it would be in the weed killer would be in his hand, he'd be smoking, the cigarette would get wet from it, he would inhale it, but he died. So the point to make is the ordinary person out there doesn't realise this, and as you already alluded to, we see all of the research that has been that has emerged recently about as you say, the chemicals that we're using at home.
Talk to me about that with regards to all of the sprays that we use in our lives and the bottle stuff that we think is making our houses and our restaurants and our bars cleaner and more hygienic.
Yeah, and just to reverse this briefly on your initial question, when you're spraying stuff, not just inhaling, you're not just inhaling it, you're taking it in through the skin and all of that. When that gets into your blood and gets into your system, we know that 90% of us, we've talked about this in the past, we have an ecosystem. We all, as human beings, have this ecological system. It's 90% of us as microbes. When we're killing microbes and we're killing weeds, but we're killing microbes in the earth. When we take in that stuff, when we breathe in that stuff, take it into our skin, we are actually killing microbes in our system. We're imbalancing the ecological system of our body, and this is what's changing and creating an immune response that's changing the makeup of the cell, altering the DNA, and I would bet in this gentleman's case is what led to his cancer. Likewise, on a day-to-day basis, we're excessively using sprays that are killing so-called 99% of bacteria. We're using in front of kids, we're spraying it ourselves, and we all do it. But we don't realise that what we're actually doing is that we're actually killing part of ourselves as well. We're inhaling toxic chemicals that are literally poisonous to our body. And it's only now we're seeing the impact on the human being. Just like, again, going back to the smoking, we're now just seeing the impact on the human being of this passive spray.
But are we also these are the passive sprays I refer to. And when you recently saw it in a restaurant where a waitress was with very high strength in industrial catering substance, she was spraying everything. And I was thinking to myself, it was hitting knives, it was hitting forks, it was hitting napkins and everything. Is that a worry?
It is a worry. It is a worry, and I think that we need to realise it's a worry, not just because I'm saying it. We need to realise it because the research is there, and we've discussed this on a number of occasions, Neil, about, when we look at modern-day illnesses, why are so many people sick? Our environment, our food, our stress. I genuinely believe the food we're eating, the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, that's what's toxic. That's what's poison. And we're taking that into our system.
And are things being sprayed upon our food?
100%. I got recently a friend of mine who was in the haulage business, and he sent me a clip of fruit and veg or whatever that he had that came in from Europe into Ireland. And he sent me the clip, and I couldn't see first what he was showing me in the clip. Okay, this particular guy is English. And the entire trailer of the truck, so the complete 40-foot trailer, there were millions of bees and flies just flying around the place. It was just, and to think that this was food that was sitting somewhere for so long, that's now been taken, that's sprayed, that's cleaned, that's thrown on shelves, and people taking that and they're looking at it and saying, we don't know where it's coming from. It looks good, it sounds good, it tastes good, whatever, and we're eating it. And food, I know, is the biggest challenge. We know that certain tillage farmers and whatever they have to do, they use glyphosate and they use herbicides and pesticides continuously, to kill stuff.
I do. I've used Roundup numerous times. I've used it in where you get the big, you can spray it, with the hand pump and everything. I've used another product called Gallop.
I've used it myself in the past until I realised some years ago. No, one of the best things to do is go out and pick those.
But what about county councils and city councils and parks and municipal areas where children play?
Well, given that the judgment has been made in this case, now I know Monsanto intend to appeal the case, but a judgment has been made. Now there's a responsibility on behalf of the county councils to react to that. So, for example, are there people who have worked in councils in the past and who worked with these chemicals that could have died from some disease?
Yeah, we had that in the past, actually, with things like asbestos, didn't we?
Correct. You got it 100%. So, does that open up the floodgates now for lots of issues? So the implications of this case are huge because it is a judgment. It is going to set precedent. If it's appealed, which it probably will, I can't see how it's going to be, how it can be appealed. There's more and more research emerging. And as I said to you, when you look at the World Health Organization, the agency, the specific agency on cancer, the advocacy group Uplift were on the case as well. I mean, we see ourselves. So it is going to be a challenge to councils now to find alternatives. And I think there are alternatives out there. I think it's like anything. you know, when something comes on scene and you think maybe it's helpful, and as I said, maybe Monsanto set out with the best intentions to kill weeds, but, you know, these products are not tested in humans. And the only place they're tested is in the environment of where they're sprayed. Okay. And that's the issue.
Okay, he's got a $289 million payout, typical American fashion, huge numbers. But if they appeal it and he's got 18 months to live, that misfortunate man won't see any of it. Not that it'll make any difference to his quality of life, I accept that, but he'll be dead while that appeal is ongoing. But can I just finally ask you talk about health and all of the different diseases that we have. We may be living longer and there may be all sorts of medical intervention to keep us alive longer. But by comparison to 50 or 100 years ago, many of these cancers, many of these neurological issues, say for instance, even your Alzheimer's or dementia, they didn't exist. Is that because of the food we're eating?
Yes. When you get to 50 years of age, Neil, if there's anything genetic going on in your body, it's going to have materialized by then. So 5% of us encounter genetic problems. 95% of our problems are environmental based. And if people, when they hit 50, between 40 and 50, if they were to look at their lifestyle, and now all the medical research has emerged pertaining to that, where it says, primarily from the age of 50 years of age, from the age of 50, we can change our lifestyle. If we change our lifestyle by reassessing what we're eating, by taking that a bit more time to relax, by getting out amongst nature, that the implications in that in our physiology is going to be far greater, you know, than anything else. And that's the key message that needs to sort of, you know...
You are what you eat, but I'm just wondering about genetically over the years, has it been more to do with canned food, dried food, pesticide-ridden food, frozen food, forced food, fast food?
Yes, 100%. Look, again, what we are eating, you know, and I often refer to your own very good guy in Cork in the Alpha Biotics Centre, Professor Fergus Shanahan. He makes it very clear the diversity of what we eat on a day-to-day basis has a direct effect on the bacteria in our gut, which in turn determines the type of illness we can get. The type of illness I am talking about, he says, are Alzheimer's, cancers, obesity, type 2 diabetes. So 90%, and this is not just me saying that, but the studies are there, 90% of modern day issues are environmental, lifestyle-based issues, and that's what we have to change. And if we go back and change our lifestyle, you know, we can at least give ourselves a chance of surviving better rather than just taking drugs all our life.
I know, drugs. I know that all of that is laudable, but there's 1 million people on health waiting lists in this country now. 1 million, you know?
Yes.
These are 1 million sick people who can't even get seen.
Listen, that's the tip of the iceberg, Neil. I deal with it every day, and I heard your chat with Louise before I came on. I deal with that every day, and I mean, it's horrendous. The people I meet on the street, the people that are trying to get into my clinic, the people I'm talking, and I work with medics myself, and they'll tell you themselves that it's just crazy. Where is all of this coming from? We need to get out and educate the ordinary people to bring about some form of change within our habits of eating and the stress levels that we're under.
And lifestyle.
That is the big... Look, Neil...
Yeah, that's right. Anxiety, stress levels, worry.
Diet and stress are the two big things. If we can just try to go back to simple, basic things. And that's what I had a guy that I saw, if you don't mind me saying this, he came from Wales a few years ago to me, and he was taking, this is on my YouTube, I can substantiate this, he was taking £38,000 worth of medication per year.
My God.
Okay? He was a type 2 diabetic, he had cholesterol issues and so on. And he was due to go for a spinal surgery for £65,000. Now, it's on my YouTube for anybody to see it. Danny Deering is his name. It's in the public domain. That's why I'm saying it. Now, what did I do to make him back? He's fully recovered back to normal health. What did I do to get him better? Okay, all I did was I said, Danny, go back to basics. Change your diet. Get some rest. Do a little bit of exercise. Get off the rubbish. Work with this to deal with your stress. Simple, basic lifestyle changes. This guy fully recovered. Amazing. No magic wand, no miracle pill, no Michael O Doherty's a miracle man. Yeah. No, it's people need direction. People need strategies. on a day.
There's more people on that journey now than ever, I think. There's more people asking 100%. Questions. They're on a journey,
100%. I mean, people just need the strategies, Neil. Like, me talking to you on the radio, saying to people, get out, you stay away from as much chemicals as possible, stop burning the scented candles, stay away from the air fresheners in your car.
Scented candles, are they a problem in the home, yeah?
Absolutely. If you're burning scented candles, the wick could be there could be some lead in that. We can see the research, scented candles. This is a continuous release of a substance that we are processing, inhaling, and doing. Many people will tell me that if they if they go into a house where it's on, they nearly physically get sick from it because it's so overwhelming.
But that might be because they don't like the scent, in fairness. Like, it mightn't be. But you're saying that there's a risk to small children and babies and stuff.
Yeah, the research is there. There's 100%. There's a reaction to all of this that we're putting into our environment.
Is that like the plug-in air fresheners and everything?
Yeah, anything that you're spraying into your environment, you're inhaling, and it's affecting us. And people just need to wake it up.
Okay.
So you said earlier on, Neil, that people were living longer this time. In actual fact, there's now research saying that the modern child today will not outlive its parents.
Well, that's bloody new research to the research I was reading, where they're saying that the children born today will live past 100. I don't know.
They won't. Not in the healthy state that our parents went. Do you get what I'm saying to you?
Oh, yeah, okay, it's not the length of the life, it's the quality of the life. Yeah,
quality of life. It's the quality of life,
okay.
Neil. That's what it's about.
I'll leave it there, Michael. Appreciate it as always. So, a lot of food for thought there, lads. Michael O Doherty, the health practitioner. You can Google him online. Back after 11 on 1850 104 106.
The Neil Prendeville Show.
With Tesco Grocery Home Shopping. Save time online at tesco.ie/groceries. Tesco, every little helps.
You talk about 1 million people on health waiting lists. All right, there are more and more people, of course, living in this country now, but there are more and more illnesses presenting. We were talking about the environment, what we're inhaling, what we're eating, the stress levels, and a lot of the illnesses that we get now, of course, come from the gut. And the gut is something that we heard over the century saying, trust your gut. What does your gut tell you? That's for a very good reason, of course, because everything starts in the gut. So we're talking about diet, we talk about stress, we're talking about the environment, the sprays that we use, the things we plug in, the candles that we light, and the weed killer products that we use, and the pesticide that's put on our food. I just want to know, just here in Cork, with regards to, say, our city and our suburbs and our county, notwithstanding the fact that farmers are using all sorts of different sprays, and I suppose we don't know half of them, but what about, say, our parks, our public areas where children play? Like, for instance, I know that, we have to have, maintenance in our public parks and our roundabouts and things like that. But anyway, enough of me. Tom Butler is with Ballincollig Tidy Towns, a town that really, over the years, seriously pulled its socks up and is now such a beautiful place to live, to work, and indeed to have some recreational time in, say, for instance, Ballincollig Regional Park. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. How are we keeping?
Good. What is the deal? I know you can probably only talk about your own environment, your own geographical area. What's the deal with weed killer? Like, say, for instance, Roundup.
Well, for ourselves anyway, the legislation changed some time ago, and it all has to be monitored now. We don't use. Before we were using some sprays, but it was limited because we're firm believers in trying to cut that out completely. All right, we would edge green areas if we were doing it. We'd have edging machines rather than spraying them. We'll edge them and cut them off. And we'll actually have VMware staff tomorrow morning where we've gone along with the edging machine and we've cut the edges last week. VMware staff are coming out tomorrow and they're removing all the edges.
So you don't spray anything then?
Well, we spray. There are certain ways that we may have to spray, and that would be down to one of our committees where we might have a noxious weed that we have no choice, but like it might be Japanese knotweed or something like that. We might have to treat that, but it's done in controlled circumstances, but not on the footpaths. That's us personally, not on the footpaths, not on the grass verges. We don't do it. And we're trying to introduce in Ballincollig that it will be a spray-free zone.
But there used to be years ago when I was a young fella, maybe not even so young, there was council workers went around with sacks on their back and a spray, and they were spraying around curbs and edging and stuff like that. That was weed killer, right?
Correct, and it has even progressed from knapsacks to going around on quads and doing it. But I will say that in Ballincollig this year, we haven't seen, there may have been done a spray, but it was done at a very early stage. But everything has to be controlled, Neil. It's not just a case of go out and it's blasé. You don't see that happening. No, I will say.
Well, there was a man said he was in Ballincollig Park yesterday and there was a man spraying. And he said, I asked him what he was spraying and he said it was Roundup.
Well, no, I can't speak for what they're doing down in the Guardian Department in the County Council, but I'm speaking on behalf of Tidy Towns. But, everything that we do in Tidy Towns is controlled.
All right, well, just let me correct it. He didn't say, he said a park in Ballincollig. He didn't say the park in Ballincollig, but he said a park.
Right, well, that's what I would say there in this situation. This is where we do have issues, is that certain landscaping companies will go out and they take the easy way. They'll go around, and I'm sure you've seen it in your own area, you've seen it in a lot of housing estates where you've got the yellow lines all around the edges of the grass verges.
Yes.
They don't want to spend the time doing it, going in and doing it. It's the easy option.
What are you saying the option is? To literally hand-pick weeds?
Well, I can tell you, Cooler Heights, right? That's where I live. And in our estate, we've adopted this year, there's no spraying being done by our landscaper. Our landscaper has been told no spraying whatsoever. And we, as residents and the committee, have gone around the trees. We've bared them back. Around the edges, we've done it. And where weeds have come up, we've keep continually doing it, where we just scrape them or whatever.
Okay.
And the estate, I must say now, look, going into it, a nice clean edge, you get your hair cut, get a nice clean edge, there's nothing like it.
That's right. You're dead right. There is nothing like it. So are you doing that as much for the people as you are for, say, the ecosystem, the honeybees, the wildlife and things?
Well, Neil, you've probably been around, you've seen Pool of Owen. We've entered the Pool of Owen roundabout along with Griffin's Garden Centre and Cork County Council is now a bee-friendly roundabout, okay? There has been no spraying done there whatsoever. Everything has been done naturally. Bark mulch, everything we've been doing around that area, and the volume of bees on the roundabout this year has just been phenomenal.
I'm just curious I'm curious about, the cancers and the illnesses that people are suffering from that they weren't suffering from years and years ago. And it has to do with diet, but it's got to have, as Michael O Doherty says, a lot to do with the environment. And I'm wondering, do the city and the county council buy gallons and gallons and gallons of weed killer year in, year out? That's what I'm trying to determine.
Well, I would say, look, every litre, every drop, millimetre of weed killer that you use now has to be recorded, has to be monitored. It's not a case of it's blasé that you can just go and spray it anywhere you like.
I know that, but I'm wondering, we're encouraging parents, particularly young parents, to get their children outdoors, get them exercising more, to use the more public park amenities. And at the same time, are we poisoning them when they do?
I would say, well, if you go to the regional park, and I know you frequent it, if you go to the regional park, you will see very little in it. There's areas that they're cutting back with it. There's less and less spraying because it's environmentally, it's wrong in what we're doing. Okay. And that's what we're trying to encourage more estates to do. And I think the landscapers have to take a responsibility as well. Not the easy option. I think what we also find is, we learned this from Danton Floral 5 years ago. The clean edges, the nice clean lawns are not what you see around Europe. And you see biodiversity areas within lawn areas. And I think we've got to change our ethos, our way of thinking, the way we approach our having manicured lawns. Let's have some wild area for the wildlife, for the birds, for the bees. And that's what we have to change our mindset.
I know. We go for everything has to be picture perfect, symmetrical and overly manicured. Appreciate you taking the call, Tom. Have a good day. Much obliged. Tom Butler of Ballincollig Tidy Towns. Ed, good morning. Ed O'Reilly wrote about this. Is that right? You've been writing on this topic.
In 2000, I think it was 2012, I wrote about this for the Bishopstown News. I was very concerned about it. I'm a lifestyle pharmacist, and just to come back to something that you said there, 95% of diseases that are being presented today are all due to, or 95% of them are due to the food you put in your mouth. Yeah,
Michael O Doherty said that exactly. 95% of it is lifestyle and 5% of it is genetic, yeah.
Well, Neil, this is where it gets really interesting, because I'm a pharmacist, so I know exactly how to read these stupid things. And I say stupid, being a little bit flippant. But actually, weed killer, this weed killer that you're talking about, specifically, was actually patented as an antibiotic I think in the early, if not in 2000. It was patented as an antimicrobial. Now,
But you're not suggesting people were supposed to ingest it.
Well, they were looking at other revenue streams because in 1964 it was patented as a chelator, meaning it latches onto something and it won't let go. So if you have a plant that's growing out there and you spray this and it's relying on manganese or cobalt or iron, you spray the actual Roundup around it, or the Weedkiller, or whatever you want to call it, it will take all that essential minerals that the plant needs to grow. Now, it works in a completely different way, but I'm just telling you how this can affect health. And I am telling you now, we are oversprayed. The one thing I will say now, and I think people need to be aware of this, if they think that this chemical stays on the plant, well, it doesn't. They told us it was biodegradable. In fact, if you go back and look at one of their adverts for this 30 or 40 years ago, they were saying that it was as safe as table salt. They had to take that off. They had to obviously get rid of that. Because the fact of the matter is that it doesn't biodegrade. They have found it that it stays in the soil for up to 12 months after it.
I know, but there was a time when they said cigarettes were good for you and they had doctors promoting them and everything. We learn with things in time. Of course, Monsanto were a company that way back created and patented Agent Orange, didn't they? And it was used in warfare against the Vietnamese and what have you.
But Michael also said that it's all about the pounds. Why did the P for the pound overtake the person? I couldn't understand that, because if I was a scientist and I knew what was going on, and I have a conscience, and this is why I got into lifestyle medicine, because you can prevent a lot of the diseases, no matter what you say. But more importantly,
well, more and more young people are more curious now about your approach to health, aren't they? They are on a mission. They're on a journey, I think, aren't they?
Absolutely, and so important, because and this, I coined this phrase, I don't know, many years ago, lifestyle pharmacist, because lifestyle medicine, health has to be by food.
Yeah, I know what
health
you're saying.
By food. And
what you eat.
One other thing, they actually spray Roundup as a desiccant on the cereals that we cultivate in Ireland. Now, what bright...
is that just an off-the-cuff remark you're making, or do you have research to back that up, that there's Roundup on crops that go in to make breakfast cereal?
Well, in...
bread.
What do you hear this one? In 2013, I wrote an article about something that I had read, and it was called Weedkiller in My Urine. Now, they have told you that it stays in the plant, that it goes away after a week or a day or whatever. The fact of the matter is it stays in the plant. It doesn't stay in the plant. It ends up in the water table, and it also ends up...
in the food that we eat?
On your plate.
Okay.
Now, there are not too many water filters out there that can take Roundup out of water, but there's definitely one or two, and that's where people need to be going, because it's a hormone disruptor. But more importantly, and this is what we need to address, is that Michael O Doherty said that it's all about bacteria. And there's an old saying that I've sort of brought, obviously I didn't coin it, but if you are a complete and utter big soup of bacteria, what Roundup will do, it will make your microbiome sick. When they get sick, you get sick. You will not get better until they get better. So
this lawsuit against Monsanto, where a man who has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and won't live past 2020, this was just waiting to happen then?
There is over 4,000 court cases at the moment. And unfortunately, fortunately for me, I eat only organic food. The reason being, I don't want Roundup on my plate. Okay.
Appreciate you taking the call, Ed. I hope we have an opportunity to talk again. Fascinating individual. Can I just ask Ted Tynan, just on this, and I'm going to move on then, but I can come back to it. Your texts are welcome, particularly if you're a young parent, right? Particularly if you're a young parent, but of any age, to be honest with you. But I'm just honing in on those people with young children who are starting out on the journey of rearing children and what they're feeding them or what they propose to feed them. But I'm just wondering, where are we at with regards to, say, Cork City Council? Because I know Ted Tynan has brought this up in the past, Workers' Party councillor. Ted, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
The City Council buy weed killer and then use it in big volumes?
Yeah. What they do, actually, Neil, is they contract out. And I actually...
But do they then know what they're contracting out, to whom they're contracting? Do they know what they use?
Well, in response to my motion of over a year ago, Neil, is that they were governed by the Department of Agriculture and by government policy. And therein lies the solution if they want to look at it. And I suggested to them, Cork City Council can ban glyphosate tomorrow morning if they introduce what is called the precautionary principle. The precautionary principle was introduced by the European Union a few years ago. And if you don't have to have 100% solid proof of glyphosate and the other chemicals are inflicting damage on human
you
life.
say glyphosate, I say weed killers, the likes of Roundup and
weed killers, yeah, all right. And Cork City Council can ban these weed killers under the principle of precaution, under the European mechanism of precautionary principle. That is there, introduced a few years ago, and it's up to the Irish government, and indeed I think Cork City Council, and I will be raising it at the next environment.
Do they use weed killer in our public parks where our children are playing? It's a simple question.
It's a simple question. Just ban it. Just get rid of it.
So you're saying they do. They contract out to companies who do the work for them, is it? And they use weed killers.
The latest company that was doing it in Cork, Neil, was a company from Wexford. And I actually spoke to the guy operating on the quad. He wasn't wearing a mask. And I asked him, was he aware of the huge danger caused by the spray, you know? And he was a bit vague on it. He didn't answer me fully, you know? So I told him, you're not doing it on my little road anyway, and he moved on, you know. He was easy to talk to. He wasn't adamant.
A quad is a four-wheeled vehicle that he was using to go around to spray,
right.
is it?
It's like a quad, you know.
Okay, but not only did he know of the damages that might be doing to people, but he wasn't even aware that it could be affecting him.
Exactly, because I was up around Shandon at the Mother Jones Festival about 2 years ago, and to the Shannon Street Festival, and late in the evening, about 5 o'clock, there was this guy coming up by the bottom market on his quad. He was fully decked out now with a jacket, proper mask and all that, you know, kind of a breathing apparatus, and protecting himself. And I tried to have a conversation with him, but he just moved on, and that was it, you know. But the Cork City Council must now take note of the huge amount of information that's coming out about the weed killers and act under the precautionary principle and ban the stuff once and for all.
Okay.
And
have you a motion to that effect?
I'll be doing that. There's an environmental meeting in September, and I'll be tabling a motion the next week or two, yeah.
Okay.